Now we're going to be moving into our first conversation, a very, very interesting one. And we're going to be looking into sexual abuse in boys. We'll be checking the myths and the realities of it. Want to take a look at those things that would refer to as myths and the actual truth, because there are a lot of speculations about it. There's a lot that people have said concerning it. Men are not being abused. It's a lie. Men are being abused. It's underreported. And, you know, this is what abuse looks like for men. This is what it looks like for women. And over the years, we've heard statements like protect the female child, protect the female child. Women are vulnerable. Women are being abused. You know, a lot we've heard about protecting women, which is okay, rightly so. But it now seems to be like we don't hear a lot about men. And recently we've seen reports about male sexual abuse in boys. People just, you know, have, thanks to social media, of course, people come out now and they talk about their experience. I think in this the past week, we saw a lot of reports like that. We saw a lot of posts like that of people coming out and, you know, speaking about these vulnerable things, these things that happened in their lives regarding abuse. And there's been a lot to, you know, to be said about it. So we're going to be having that conversation. And joining us to have this conversation is Mr. Elekwachi Chimezie Lekwas, the Program Director, African Network for the Preventing and Protection Against Child Abuse and Neglect, ANPPCAN, the Nigerian chapter. Welcome to the show, sir.
Good morning.
Good morning. Welcome
Good
to the show.
morning. How are you doing, sir?
I'm fine.
Okay, so of course I've introduced the topic. You've heard everything. Like I said, we often hear protect the women, protect the female child, and truthfully, honestly, a lot has happened to women in the previous years and even currently. But we don't seem to be hearing a lot about men. So I'll begin by asking, how rampant is sexual abuse in men and boys?
I think it's more rampant than what is reported. My office runs the Child Rights Monitoring Center, and we do not often get cases of, as we get for the girls, probably because of awareness, probably also because of stigmatization. But I think it's quite prevalent, but people are not talking about it, because I know in my conversations with people, men who have been sexually abused as children, I know that a lot of people had talked to me privately, because I'm also a clinical psychologist. So in that capacity as well, I've also had men talk about them being sexually abused, not usually by the opposite sex, but also by the same sex. So it's something that is very present with us. But the reporting is lower than we know. Even for the girls as well, and there's a low reportage of it, yeah. So it's something that it's common, it's happening.
Something you said just caught my attention. You said not just by women, but by males too.
Okay.
Yeah.
So how rampant is that too?
Boys have been, usually, it's quite often, it comes very often. Boys are being sexually abused by same sex. Sometimes not by the opposite sex, because this kind of sexual desires are things that society doesn't allow to be brought out to the public. So children become easy prey for such people who are sexually aroused by same sex. So children are usually the soft target for them, yeah.
Okay, so just like you said it's been underreported. What do you think is the reason why people don't actually come forward to report these cases and seek for justice? Do you think masculinity has been used in the wrong way around this?
I don't think it's just a problem of masculinity, because even for the girls, we do not also see large reportage. In fact, the Violence Against Children survey estimates that less than 1% of the people who experience violence know where to report, and less than 5% actually receive supportive services. So that means that reportage is not just a gender thing. It's a problem around reporting of sexual abuse of children. And also, we have a culture here where children are seen and not heard. And because of that, children do not have that voice to be able to talk about the issues that they are experiencing. They may not have the confidence, or they may not feel that they have the ears of the right people to be able to talk to. most importantly, children are children. They're still developing. They don't have all the capacity to become like adults and do all the things that adults do. So sometimes they may not even understand what they're experiencing because they may not have been sensitized towards that. Or sometimes they may also talk to other children who may not also know what's happening. So it's a mixture of a lot of things. It's the issue of stigmatization that goes on, issues of sexual abuse, is the issue of some homosexuality, which is not usually, which is not usually not accepted within our culture, and people feel that they might be stigmatized when they experience it. It's an issue that children do not have the voice that they should have. They are rather seen but not heard. They're not given the opportunity to express themselves as they should. It's also the issue that children have not been well sensitized, and they're still developing to be able to understand exactly all the things that are happening to them. And sometimes this may happen to children who may not even have the voice to talk, because we have seen children who are around 1 year, 2 years who have been sexually abused.
Babies.
Yeah, so it's a whole lot of work or issues surrounding the reportage.
Okay. Now, before we talk about, while we're talking about reportage, which is, of course, going to the authorities and, of course, publicity generally, having people more sensitized about it, let's talk about the secrecy that goes on with the person that has been abused. Because I also realize, with my own findings, I've realized that most of the times, boys especially, since we're focusing on boys, they don't even talk about it. Ladies, maybe you could see the lady crying, you could see the girl displaying some kind of behaviors, but I don't know about men. I'm not a man, but I sort of noticed that sometimes they don't even express. So I'd like to know, what could be the reason behind it? Now, we've had reports of maybe not children generally, but whenever you talk about sexual abuse in ladies, in girls, you hear people, that stigma comes. You hear people say, oh, she dressed this way, she dressed that way, she was going here, she was doing like this.
Walk alone at
for
night,
men now, what are there such, statements for them too? Are there things that people use
and attribute to and say this
and say this is why this should have happened, which would not say is what makes them to be quiet? What would you say?
But even for the women who we know that people talk about how they dress and all of that,
it's not justifiable, of course.
It's not justifiable. And studies have shown that that's not also the reason why women have been sexually abused. Same for the boys. The issues around this is not about the boys, it's about the people who perpetrate the act. Because she wouldn't say that the boy had done something extraordinary or something revealing.
Okay, just hold on for a bit. Let's just take a very short break. We'll be right back. Please don't go anywhere. Welcome back. It's still the AM Weekend Show. Sorry for that rather abrupt break, but we're right back. And back to the conversation. Yes, we're talking about why young boys seem to keep these things to themselves when they're sexually abused.
Primarily a problem of sexual perversion. People want to have what they want to have. It's about interest. It's what somebody wants to have. This what excites me, and this is what I want. So they go about it whichever way that they want, and then try to exploit or take advantage of the most vulnerable child within the cycle. So it's really not about the people who are the victims or survivors, but it's about the people who
Welcome back to the show. Sorry, we had a technical issue to fix, but we're right back. Back to you, Mr. Lekwas. Please go on with your line of thoughts.
Yeah, so the point is, society has a way of expectation. There's what's called gender roles, gender expressions. There are certain things that are dubbed to be masculine, and there are things that are dubbed to be feminine. So men are usually not the ones that will be talking, because that's not how society, probably our society prescribes for masculine behavior. Yeah, so usually when things like this happen, they may not even talk about it. And when it's with the opposite sex, I know growing up, it was almost a thing of pride that a boy was sexually abused by an older lady. understand?
Yeah, well, I was going to get to that.
So it's somehow like a good
Hey, my
good thing
God.
for the young boys. But you know that the impact of sexual abuse of children is far-reaching and long-term, long-lasting. So it's a mixture of things for the men. Somehow it may be acceptable or good among the boys that they are now being sexually attractive to the older women. For the other same sex, it's the fact that they may not even understand what is happening, and society doesn't really support men being very, very expressive. In fact, we know that in mental health, we're even telling men to be more expressive, to talk about issues, and this starts from childhood. Yeah. So in Igbo, we say obidimpa, obidike, and all of that. So traumatic experiences are not just the things that boys would usually talk about because of how society has made it. Yeah.
Okay. So still in this conversation, what are the long-term emotional and psychological effect this has on boys growing up?
So it's primarily when you talk about emotions, we're talking about traumatic experience, post-traumatic stress disorder. You probably will look at anxiety because people who experience this may develop anxiety because they don't know what they are going to experience next, when they are going to be sexually abused and all of that. Depression as well. These are probably the most common forms of mental health disorders that you may experience. But also we know that in literature, according to the books, we know that some children might start experiencing what is called dissociative disorders, where they have moments of unconsciousness, like not like convulsion or something, but they just lose consciousness just because of the trauma. And that losing of consciousness is a way to escape what is happening to them, because when the trauma becomes overwhelming on the child, they unconsciously want to escape from the environment where this is happening. But also we know that issues of crime is common amongst people who have been sexually abused, because sometimes they may feel that they are helpless, nobody's protecting them, and the way to escape or the way to communicate the stress, the experience that they are having, may be to become delinquents. So that's why you may also see an increase in juvenile delinquency. So these are some of the emotional things that you might experience. So that issue of delinquency is something that may be happening, but people may not know that it's as a result of sexual abuse of boys. Yeah.
Okay, now, coming back to some of the things you pointed out, for instance, when you talked about younger boys thinking it's a thing of pride when they are being, attracted, when the opposite sex finds them attractive and all of that. I think it indicates a deeper ignorance going on somewhere in the society at large. We've seen cases where people are abused and they don't even realize they are abused. We've seen situations where people think because they actively participated or because, they were lured and so that means you cannot say you were being abused. So I'd like you to clear that up a little for us, especially for younger children, because this, of course, this whole show is aimed at having people know about this, so that the boy that is thinking, oh, it was a good thing, can know that, okay, despite being lured, despite the fact that you felt a certain type of way, this is what makes it abuse. And this is what makes it not to be abused. Please, can you help us with that?
The reason why we have said, or the reason why it's been said in literature that children should not participate in sexual-related activities is that they are still at the developmental stage. Their bodies, their brains, their social abilities to navigate circumstances, their physiology is not yet developed for sexual activities. And when you introduce children early to sexual activities, it might pervert their understanding, it might stunt their growth, it might hamper their development, it might affect them in various ways. And we know for the females, the primary thing that we know is the issue of VVF, viscovaginal fistula, amongst children who become pregnant as a result of sexual activities. And there could be other things. And for the boys also, the issue of anxiety, trauma around sexual-related activities, and we've talked about juvenile delinquency. It's something that could happen. But you know that, like I said, sensitization is still not very poor. It's still very poor, and it's not targeted, you know. We need to target sensitization that matches the girls and those that matches for the boys, because their needs are different, you know. For the boys, we need to be able to target information around the issues of them understanding that if even an older girl or an older female takes advantage of them, that is something very, very bad, and they should be able to report it. They should be able to say something. They should be able to express it, because if they don't, that continues going on. It affects the way they are going to see life, the way they are going. And you know that the brain has one reward circuit. The same circuit where we feel excited when I praise you for doing something right is the same circuit that you get excited when you have sexual activities. So if sex is the thing that stimulates that reward excitement, children start wanting to have it even more.
So now how do they report since they felt good about it?
Because they are looking for that excitement. But the problem is, because they are still developing, they do not have all the capacity to develop or to have that discipline, that control over it. And this may affect their long-term development, make them exposed to various forms of, like an addiction, you know, as well. So this is very critical. And when you talked about the emotional issues that children might face, addiction might be one of them. They may become addicted to sexual-related activities because it gives excitement, you know, whether you're a child or not. But what we're saying is you shouldn't experience it while you're still a child. It should allow you to develop fully, get to the age where you can give consent, understand the implications of what you are giving consent to, and be able to control the outcome and all of that. So these are some of the issues that might affect the fact. And we must be able to tailor sensitization to specific gender, because what each of them are experiencing are totally different here.
Wow. That's a lot to unpack.
A whole lot. Now, speaking on sensitization and awareness, what roles do you think the church, the faith institutions, family, even schools should play in creating this awareness? And are they like, I think people don't really know much, but are there any healing system or a system available for people to report to right now?
So what should everybody do? I think one of the things that we're not even talking about is sexual abuse that is happening on the internet space.
Okay.
That sexual exploitation that is happening on the internet. You know, a lot of children are becoming more exposed to the internet, and there's a lot of harm happening there. And we need to look at how children have access to the internet. Okay. What safety measures are being provided. And this goes to the regulatory institutions, to government primarily, because it's their responsibility to protect children. So on the internet space, in fact, I saw a study by National Communication Commission which says that about 90-something% of our children who are between the ages of 11 and 16 are vulnerable to exploitation on the internet because there's no protection. So children have access to mobile devices which do not have safeguarding softwares to protect them from having access. And you see some of these our apps or websites that we use, they just advertise those nude-related things, and they just pop up on your screen, and before you know it, somebody starts going. So those are the kind of things that devices that children use should be protected from. Children should not have access to social media until maybe around 16, 17, so that they'll be able to have knowledge of what they are going into, you know. And even what studies are saying now is that, you know, disappearing messages is also another problem where predators hide on. They send those messages, and before anybody sees it, the messages have disappeared, and you may not have something to hold on to as a means to litigate. Yeah, so first on the social media or the internet space, there's a lot of work that needs to be done to protect children. That's on the one side. Then come to the family as well. Parents need to understand that children are developing, and you know, the strategies that was used for us who are the millennials may not be something very effective for the generation Alpha or the Gen Z as the case may be. I think the Gen Zs have become a lot more adults than
than
we're
Alpha.
looking at the Gen Alpha as well. So we must be able to. Parents need to be as knowledgeable of happenings of today as they were in their own time. So you need to be able to understand the language, the lingo, the slangs, the communication that goes with it, and they should be able to look out for the children, create an atmosphere where children are able to communicate. An atmosphere where children communicate to their parents doesn't mean that there's no discipline or there's a drop down, but an atmosphere where there's healthy communication. And also, there's a bigger problem with, I think they call it Sherrington, where parents expose their children to the internet too early, way too early. I have a video on my phone where a young girl was doing a catwalk for modeling, and it seemed nice. But in the real sense of it, the dressing was too tight, it was too revealing, and it may send signals to people who ordinarily do not want to do something wrong, but you are exposing children too much on the internet. So every little thing you are exposing those children on the internet space, which may not be necessary. In fact, we are even talking about child labor on the internet. Those young girl children that you see that are funny.
Yes.
Are now being used. You see content.
Create content and
about
money,
them
make money.
all the time. So are we giving these children time to be able to rest? To be able to, somebody is posting them and is trying to make sure that there is active content from that young child all the time. That's a form of child labor. That's the story for another day.
Another day. All right, okay.
So parents need to be able to be awake to what is needed to be done. The issue of cyberbullying is also another problem, like I talked about. Children even abuse themselves. And in that process of cyberbullying, you may exclude the children. They may become isolated. And in that process of isolating them, they may be looking for company on the internet. And that's where you find these
predators.
Who might abuse them. So parents need to be awake. School authorities need to be very active about bullying and protecting children, and issues of child safeguarding needs to be taken seriously. Child protection policy. We have seen on the internet what has happened on the issue of the young child. I think it was 2 years ago, the cowgirl situation on the internet and all of that. So there's a lot of work that needs to be done. Also, the media institutions like you are doing need to give more attention. And they need to be very informed about the conversation. It's no longer just a random, anybody comes to talk about the issues. We need to bring people, and they need to be more researched to be able to drive necessary conversations. That need to change, policy change, and legal laws to protect children needs to be enacted as well. So the media needs to be more involved, more vested in the issues around protecting children,
All right, thank you so much. Unfortunately, we've run out of time. I still have a couple of questions, but we can't take them today. Perhaps we'll have a continuation of this conversation some other time. Thank you so much. This was very insightful and very empowering. Thank you.
Thank you so much.
And to you, viewer, that was Mr. Elekwachi Lekwas. Did I get that right?
Yeah.
Okay, we've just talked about sexual abuse in boys. Up next on the AM Weekend Show is another conversation. We're talking about empowering the youth, empowering the young ones still. And we'll be having that conversation right after this short break. Do not go anywhere. We'll be right back.